just any point of clarity as we go through this training on our quality assurance program here at United Way 211 Greater Cleveland. We are recording this so that others going forward will have a chance to view the same training, either in their onboarding process or as a review, whatever. It's important to note that our quality assurance program has been an evolving process for about the last almost 4 years now. And I think that we've gotten this in a position where it's pretty exemplary. One of the very first things we did was investigate with other 211 or information and referral system providers to see what they were doing, and did some research along those lines and discovered that everybody was kind of floundering their way through this standard that was set by AIRS, that there has to be some kind of quality assurance program. It's a good thing, it's a great thing. Most call centers have it as just a standard because it helps with constant improvement of service delivery. And it also gives you criteria in areas where training would be helpful, either on a one-on-one basis or overall. And I think before I begin, what I would like to say is that when Nadine and I are monitoring a call, it's total hindsight, which gives us 20/20. We can play that call over and over and over again until we fully understand what that caller has said. Just it goes above and beyond what any information specialist would ever be able to do in a call. You guys are in the trenches when you're on a call with someone. You're up to your knees, if not elbows, in whatever their situation is, and you are literally doing the best you can with what you've got. So don't ever think when you're viewing and reviewing a call that's been monitored that we are picking away and trying to find, issues and problems. This is a process that is kind of like a best practice for shaping a 211 call center to continuously be improving its service delivery and improving the training that it provides for our specialists. So know that Nadine and I were once INR specialists. We kind of know the ropes of what it's like to take one call after another in a shift. And have just about anything coming at you from the other end of that phone. And I think we have a deep appreciation and gratitude for all of the work that is done. I'm going to start first with our document that I sent out to everybody. It's certainly okay if you didn't have a chance to review it. It is our monitoring agreement, and what we have recently worked over, hopefully for maybe a final time for a while. Parts of it did not change, but because we did change a little bit about the way we operate. I'm going to pretty much go through this whole thing. It's probably the only time you'll really look at this document in the whole process of, the piece that you do within quality assurance and listening to your own monitored calls. So human interaction is the prime service element in help center service delivery. Now, whether someone's engagement is by phone, chat, text, one-on-one if you're out at a health fair, our goal is to help our callers discover new information, resolve a problem, and have some form of improvement in their life based on having come in contact with us. United Way 211 will monitor and record calls and other media interactions for quality assurance purpose to continuously increase the quality of our service and provide feedback, as well as training for our navigation specialists. Customer results are measured in 3 focus areas: communication, content, and procedure. And that is to make sure that each customer receives empathy, a professional assessment, accurate information, and a plan to move forward, and to check that referral and demographic data are recorded correctly for recording purposes mainly. To this end, a certain number of contacts per specialist will be monitored and scored on a monthly basis. Scoring will be conducted through Quality Assurance Management System, through which results will be available and viewed by 211 specialists. 211 will also provide specialists regular opportunity for one-on-one coaching. Internal monitoring and scoring procedures will undergo regular calibrations, which we now do twice a month, to ensure uniformity and effectiveness of the QA practice. It's basically so that I'm not operating in a completely different mindset from Nadine or anyone else who might come on board to score calls. Now, within communication, you're going to see several measures once we take a look at the actual form. But the purpose is to ensure the 211 specialists actively listen in order to engage the caller in empathetic conversation, to use conversation as a means of both establishing rapport with the customer while holistically assessing their situation, to address their stated request and any underlying needs, any other identifiable, mutually agreed upon unstated needs. Also to demonstrate customer care and concern while actively problem solving, to communicate confidentially, politely, effectively, in order to inspire customer trust and confidence, and to help promote consistency in the technique, language, and general service delivery among our 211 specialists. And content really is all about delivering from refer, but we measure this area to appropriately match each customer's established needs with appropriate key and complementary resources to ensure all information is provided with full detail, accuracy, and directly from our resource database. In other words, if it's not in there, it really shouldn't be given as a resource to someone. Then to express referral detail and requisite structure and content to reinforce customers' understanding and expectation of the programs they will be contacting, and then to confirm that the customer has a clear linear path to move forward, taking into account each resource offered, the needs that have been addressed, and an agreed upon plan for assessing each referral. To recognize the need for follow-up, escalation, or advocacy in complicated or endangerment situations. Then our third area of measurement is our procedure to demonstrate proper use of all the telephone equipment to ensure the customer receives the most efficient and consistent service possible, to confirm that proper action was taken in cases where supervisor assistance or intervention was necessary to fully address the customer needs, to report any potential corrections, clarifications, sending transmittals, basically communicating back with our resource specialist, to ensure all demographic and referral information was confirmed for accuracy and entered correctly to help 211 report out on what types of help certain communities are seeking what type of help is available, and any gaps in service that may exist in one particular area or throughout Ohio. So when we move on to our form, you will see that different measures will be grouped into these three categories of communication, content, and procedure. Now, the way that we monitor is that I will review and score, or this has to be changed. I just noticed that Nadine and I will review and score 5 calls per month for each full-time specialist, 4 calls, 1 per week, for each part-time specialist. And then by the previous month should be completed by the 10th of the following month. And sometimes people will be on vacations or have a leave or just for some reason not have a shift within a particular week. So as a general rule, we just, bypass that week for you. In other words, we would not, in general, monitor 2 calls in the same week, unless you're a full-time person. And then the calls to be assessed will vary in selection. We try and change them up based on their length, the type of call, the day, where it sits in your shift. In other words, we don't want to catch you at the end of a Friday shift every single week. Then specialists may also request that QA staff monitor and, if desired, score a particular contact. And I really encourage every specialist, you guys, to do this. And you do it by simply sending it to the 211QA@unitedwaycleveland.org. So if there's a call that puzzled you, that you're not quite sure you did well, or a call that you really think you nailed and you want to make sure that that's what a somewhat perfect, although it's impossible to have a perfect call, somewhat perfect call looks like, please send that off, and that gives our team 7 to 10 days to go ahead and listen to it and give you feedback on any calls, any and every call that you may want to select for yourself to be monitored and get feedback on. Now, scoring at the moment, I would like to find a way to change this and have been thinking on it and working toward it, but at the moment it seems an awful lot like going to school, where you're going to get a score that's either A, B, C, D, or F, and you'll be able to view that once we get into having you guys open up the software that we use for this and begin to look at your own scores. You'll have up to 2 half-hour time slots that you can add to your timesheet, so to speak, each month outside of your working shifts, to take time to listen to your own calls that have been monitored and take a look at how it was scored. I encourage you to dispute or question whenever you have a question about the way something was scored. We're certainly human and sometimes can be rushed, or just sometimes make a mistake for no real reason at all. So when you are looking at and viewing your own monitored scores and listening to that call, if you have any questions at all, once again, you're going to send an email to the 211QA@unitedwaycleveland.org email, and that will be addressed as quickly as possible. But technically, we have 30 days to take a look at that and come to some kind of an agreement with you if it is a dispute. Okay. There's also within the telephone system an opportunity for customers to fill out customer satisfaction results, a scoring sheet. You know, you've probably done this yourself if you've ever talked to your health carrier or somebody that monitors calls. And our customers can actually score you after they have spoken with you. So that is not included in our QA process. That's a completely different measure and something that you'll probably eventually talk about with your supervisor. Now, coaching is something that we are implementing as soon as possible, starting actually in April. So specialists can request general or subject-specific coaching anytime just by contacting that 211 QA email. And also, navigation managers and 211 leadership will begin to conduct monthly QA sessions with anyone who scores 70 or below in a month. And quarterly coaching sessions will also be set up just on an ongoing basis with everyone, okay? So by the 15th of the month, I run reports in Xzam, which is the software that we use, and those reports let us know what everybody's monthly score was. So supervisors or coaches will contact anyone within 5 to 7 days of the 15th of the month if they scored in that particularly low in that previous month. And that's mainly based on just, you know, verbally, hey, this is what happened last month and what can we do to get your score up and how can I help you? And if the score still remains low for the following months, maybe a written training plan will be put in place. And then this sounds a little human resourcey, but the third month, if things stay consistently low, some kind of corrective action must be taken. And if a person is found that they can't come above 70%, then termination is possible after that written corrective action, but I can't imagine that happening ever. Calibrations are something that we do twice a month where management staff and also a researcher come into the conference room here on the floor, and Aaron and Nadine are in on those via telephone and webinar connections, and we hash over a call to make sure that scores remain consistent and that we're all calibrating or scoring calls in a similar way as close as we can possibly get it. And then all of this stuff is confidential. Basically, I'm going to go through this fairly quickly because the only time we would ever use your recorded calls would be in an internal training session. If anything outside, like a funder would request a recorded call to be, you know, given to them or whatever, your permission would be sought first. So you'd have the right to say, no, I don't want somebody listening to my voice and my performance on a particular call. So basically, that's what confidentiality is all about. And then at some point, we're going to have everybody sign, if you haven't signed already, the call monitoring consent form, which just basically says that you understand everything we just ran through and you are in agreement with it. Any questions so far? It's been all me. Any thoughts, ideas, things I might have missed? Okay, hope I didn't put you to sleep on that one. I'd like to quickly go through our score sheet, and this is something that I actually emailed to myself. This is a form that we have been waiting since February 1st for Xzam to update, which is why I have come up with this. We will be rolling out in April a detailed, very detailed booklet, and when you meet one-on-one with your coach supervisor, you'll go through that booklet for a complete understanding of exactly what each one of these measures means. Right now I just want to go through it very quickly and show you how each metric or measure has a different point set assigned to it. So the first one is your greeting, and what we're looking for is that scripted greeting that thanks your caller, mentions 211, gives your name, and offers to help. And this is worth 5 points. Demonstrates active listening throughout the call is worth 10 points. And establishes dialogue, asks correct questions to determine customer need is worth 15 points. So those are kind of the only point range that these metrics have. And I like to equate that, the difference between a 5-pointer and a 15-pointer. It's kind of like a 3-pointer and a 2-pointer, and then a 1 point from the foul line. In basketball, the 15-point metrics have the most impact on your caller when that measure is not met within a call. And I hope that makes sense. If you open your greeting with a hi, how are you? How can I help you? And you don't score 5 points there, you haven't affected, your situation with your caller. However, if you haven't assessed the call properly or correctly or picked up on different clues that they gave you throughout the call, that could potentially affect the referrals you give and therefore have your caller walk away with less information than they really need. I hope that makes sense. The next measure is demonstrates a willingness to help. Uses appropriate tone, pace, volume, inflection throughout the call. Uses correct grammar, pronunciation, enunciation, short, simple sentences where possible. Keeps things fairly simple. Inspires confidence, trust. Specialist was polite, courteous, shows empathy throughout the call. Avoids slang, personal opinions, religious or political statements. This goes to being non-judgmental within a call. Controls silence gaps, but avoids irrelevant conversation, avoids unnecessary interruptions or talking over the caller. Used appropriate closing, and once again, this is closing, this is something that's scripted for you. And you can see the different points going into everything that we measure in terms of communication. Content explains the reason and provides context for asking demographics and any other questions. And this goes to kind of putting your caller at ease by first explaining why you're asking a question, and then gives context for referrals before providing. And going forward, we've eliminated this measure, but Xzam, our software provider, has to catch up with us. Then our third one under content is resources and or information provided is correct and matches your caller's need. And you could see where that would be worth 15 points. Provided appropriate level of detail, another 15-pointer. Provided key resources to caller and offered options where available. provides resource information based on content, not personal opinion or your own knowledge about something. This kind of goes to transmittal. If you know something that you don't see in the database about a particular agency that you're familiar with, you need to let our researchers know so that they can contact that agency and get that put in. And sometimes there is information that agencies don't want us sharing with callers. So that's kind of a delicate thing that we always want to go through our resource department and pay close attention to, only giving information that is actually in refer. And confirms caller's understanding of the resource provided and assists caller with a clear plan to move forward. And then the last measure under content is offers a follow-up call if applicable. Okay. Now, procedure is going to change considerably going forward. And we eliminated the first one. Specialists use proper hold procedures. We're wanting you to ask permission before you put somebody on hold, and when you return, thank them for holding, and also not disconnect them when you pop them on hold. Specialist uses proper reskill transfer procedures. Once again, you want to make sure you're getting that person to the right place, and either using a cold transfer, warm transfer, or a conference call, depending on the protocol and the situation at hand. Appropriately gathers customer demographic for assistance, and then specialist correctly records demographics and information in refer. And that's making sure you capture those unmet needs, registering a tax call, cancellation properly, that sort of thing. So, this is probably the exception to the rule, where recording a call and its demographics isn't going to have a whole lot of impact on your caller, none actually. They're going to walk away not even knowing that you did that, but it has a tremendous impact on our communities when we report out the results of what we've been seeing people call us about, especially in the categories of unmet or undermet needs. So that's why it's worth 15 points. Okay. Any questions so far on that one? I'm going to go ahead and close that. We don't need to come back to it, but I am going to show you a live call here, because once you get into the software, which we're going to deal with next, you're going to see that you can hover. And while you're in there and you've seen how your call has been scored, you can hover and go, oh, yeah, I forgot to mention 211 in my opening. That's why I got a no on this measure instead of a yes. Or, okay, I didn't use the person's name even though they offered it to me. That's why they thought I wasn't polite or courteous. So that's kind of a neat feature that you'll find once you get in there to take a look at our software. Any questions so far on this part? Does it all seem to make sense in the process that we go through? Okay, thank you. I just got a chat from Janice saying yes. I appreciate that. Sometimes when it's all me like this on trainings, it's like, oh, everybody's asleep now.
Sorry, I was trying to learn to unmute myself, but yes, it does make a lot of sense.
Good, great. The calibration comments are for management. You guys really don't, need to bother yourself with some of this stuff until you have a question on one of the measures, and then the comments that we might make might help your coach or supervisor know what we were thinking when we gave you that score. Okay. Now, this is a...
Hey, Susan.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
This is Nadine. I was wondering, and I could have missed this, but did you talk about like NAs, like the not applicables?
I did it.
I thought that might be something to mention.
Yeah, and once you guys go through the full training book or quality assurance guide that backs up each one of those measures that we went through, you're going to find a few of them where it's possible to get an NA. Like probably the empathy is the most common. And that's where there really wasn't any reason to empathize with your caller. It just didn't apply in the call that you were on. So there are three. Sometimes with most measures, you will either get a yes or a no. You either achieved that greeting, or you actively were listening to your caller, or you weren't. But sometimes, and there's many cases, I want to say there's probably a half dozen or so situations within all of our measures, maybe about a half dozen, where it could be a not applicable, given the nature of what the topic of that call was. Okay, is that what you were talking about, Nadine? And thank you.
Exactly. I just thought I should mention.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you. Now, when you hover in the future, once exam gets up to speed with us, this is what you will see. Used appropriate greeting, we are looking for you to begin speaking promptly, open up refer as soon as you can, enter the right porthole or access site based on the skill, in contact skill that the call came in on, and then thank the client for contacting 211 or whatever, gambling helpline, whatever you've answered, and then provide your first name and an offer to help. Demonstrated active listening, or basically...
I have a question about number one, the appropriate greeting. Is that something that we're able to, hi, this is Sandra, thank you for calling 211, or is that something that we have to say that is an actual script?
It is. We have provided it for you as a script.
Okay. I guess I just don't know if we're able to paraphrase that and say kind of what we, just kind of what we are saying, or if that has to be verbatim from that script.
It doesn't have to be verbatim from the script. It just has to have all of those elements. There is the tip sheet that contains the script, as well as a second page of some helpful hints kind of things. Hopefully you guys have seen this already. I know that your training was like wham bam, and a lot of this stuff was coming at you all at the same time. But the thank you for calling 211, this is Susan, how may I help you, is the suggested. But if you want to throw your name up there first, say, this is 211, thanks for calling us today. How can I help you? My name is, any order you want to put that in. But there's basically...
Okay, so as long as we have the elements, we don't have to follow the script verbatim.
And I see it as 4 elements. Yes, Sandra, exactly. There's the thanking, there's the branding 211, there's your name, and the offer to help. So yeah, any way you want to do that is actually
okay. Thank you for the clarification on that.
Demonstrated active listening. Specialists listen to client and through minimal encouragers, paraphrasing, open-ended questions, demonstrating a full understanding of the initial reason for the client's contact prior to asking the demographic questions. And this is a huge change, I know, because in the back of our minds, we all know we've got to get to refer. You know, that's the only way we're going to help this person is to get into refer. But it's really important to establish that rapport and actively listen and let your caller know, you know, it's a sign of respect. I am listening to you, and this is what I'm hearing, kind of conversation before you move quickly to that zip code and that age. And then the third one continues along those lines because assessment is key to the success of any call, and attempted to establish dialogue and ask correct questions to determine client's need. So we're looking, you know, for those open-ended, closed-ended questions, that conversation that brings out more information than just that initial request. We often talk about this in terms of request versus need and how we can sometimes get into a rut of just dealing with the request that's been presented without assessing for the true need that might be lying there underneath it, which is the true value of information and referral and of being a live call center as opposed to something that could be recorded and, you know, automated. So also what we're looking for here is if your caller is out of breath, there's children crying in the background, there's something going on. One of the things that I like to think of with this measure is when you're distracted by something that's going on in the call, it's probably not a bad idea to bring that out. You know, even if it's a TV that's way too loud and your caller keeps asking you to repeat this and repeat that, well, you know, gee, I'm having a hard time hearing you too. And I'm hearing that TV. Do you think that could be turned down? You know, that's certainly not part of the assessment process, but I think it's a good example of, you know, trying to draw your caller in to giving you a little bit more information so that you can really fully help them to every extent possible.
I have another question. I have another question on number 3. For the attempted to establish dialogue, so if you have a caller who isn't willing to talk back and forth, or if, you know, they're calling in and they're like, this is my zip code, this is my age, I've called before, you know, and just basically shutting down. Or we'll say sometimes I'll get a caller who's saying, you know, I'm on a minute's phone, I don't have time for this, I just need this information. Are we then able to, in a quality assurance, from a quality assurance standpoint, say, I completely understand, I hear you, and skip to what they're specifically asking for without going through the conversation of the call?
A lot of gray area going on here. My gut instinct would be to say no. And I think it's important for callers to understand, you know, and a caller that might say, I'm on a minute phone, you know, immediately you want to go, do you have an email address? Because I, you know, can email these referrals to you, but I don't want to shortchange my assessment because I want to be able to give you every possible resource.
Right, except, so, I mean, you know, I mean, and I don't mean to argue with that, but I mean, I think that especially because of the population that we're dealing with, you know, a lot of them don't have email addresses. You know, even when we're doing something like tax scheduling, where, you know, that's one of the questions that we're asking, do you have an email address? Almost always, you know, especially, you know, if they're a little bit older or whatever, they don't have the email address, and sometimes they just simply, you know, are looking for this information, and I do get a lot of callers that are not willing to engage. They just want the information, and you know, any attempt to engage them further is just frustrating them.
Well,
I agree.
Right. And I agree, and I've listened to plenty of those calls as well as had them myself. And I don't think Nadine and I would fault the specialist for the state of mind that your caller is in. Okay?
Right.
I want to reassure you of that, but I also don't want to dismiss the fact that our callers, based on what you actually said, Sandra, because of the type of caller that they are, they deserve our attention, and they deserve the full breadth of what a good interaction with a call specialist can give them. So at the same time, you still want to be understanding, let them know that you want to be understanding, and you know, encourage them maybe to call us back from another phone at another time or 24/7 when we can give them that full attention that they're going to need. I think it's all about making sure that they're aware that we're not a social service 411. If we were, we could be automated and we'd all be out of jobs. So you know, it's a fine line, it's a gray area, but with that particular caller that you're talking about who's annoyed with the questions and knows the drill, I hear you. I definitely hear you, and I don't think Nadine and I would take points in that area. If anything, we'd, you know, choose another call. To, you know, because it's not really fair to you to, you know, ding you, so to speak, because you've got kind of a poor caller on the other end of the line, uncooperative. But there are techniques to work around that.
Sure, thanks.
And then, sure, thank you for asking it, because that was probably on everybody's mind. Demonstrated a willingness to help, that we, you know, want to hear verbalized. Yes, I can help you with that. Used appropriate tone, pace, volume, inflection. Remained welcoming throughout the whole call. Used correct. Oh, I think I might have to ask somebody to mute. I'm hearing some background noise. Used correct grammar, spelling, pronunciation, enunciation, short, simple sentences. You know, you want to avoid, oh, sure, I know HEAP. I'll give you the number. That's the Home Energy Assistance Program, right? So often our callers mix up HEAP and PIP, and I think when we spell it out for them and give the full name, it's an education to them. So inspired confidence and trust. You want to avoid tentative language, basically. Used was polite, courteous, showed empathy throughout the contact, remains non-judgmental, avoided offering advice. Sometimes callers ask us for advice, and you really along those lines. Remained objective is really the main thing we're going for in number 10 here. Controlled silence gaps. 10 seconds is the measure that we're looking for. You want to try and keep your caller engaged as much as possible. Let them know what you're doing. Hey, I'm searching. Hey, I'm opening up a new database here and trying to get you scheduled for that appointment. Avoided unnecessary interruption or talking over the caller. Used appropriate closing. And once again, we've given you guys a suggested closing, you know, which once again, we thank the caller, we brand 211, ask if they need further assistance. One of the phrases that I hear people use and I really like a lot is, do you think you have enough information to get started. But the key thing here that kind of closes the loop at the end of the call that we sometimes have to take points off for because it's not mentioned is if this information does not work out, please call us back. Because we want to know, because think about it, if you've assessed correctly, you've searched correctly, you've given full detail, your caller should be able to make those next phone calls and get exactly what they need. And if they don't, we want to know about it. We want to correct whatever is wrong, or we want to be able to advocate for them going forward because, wait a minute, what happened? Oh, you only reached a receptionist who kind of put you off? No, we want to revisit this. This is what my information said. Let's call them together. That's that, we call it closing the loop. In other words, you've done all of the work that you needed to do. Your caller now needs to go out and do some work on their own, and we want to hear back from them if that didn't work out. And then content. Explained reasons, provided context for asking demographic and other questions, provided an accurate explanation for why. This is suggested language in the script also. Where is it? Since programs serve different areas and ages, may I ask the zip code and age of the person who needs the service? I would encourage you guys to begin using this. I know your old reason for this had something to do with confidentiality, or sometimes I hear folks say, in order to get my search started. Well, the reality is, in order to qualify them for what's going to pop up on your match list, you need their zip code and their age. So an easy way to put that is programs serve different areas and ages. May I have your zip code and your age? Oh, you're calling for someone else? Do you know their zip code and their age? So that you're giving the correct referrals from your match list. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Hi, Susan. I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt you or kind of skip back, but Anna Maria had a question for you.
Sure.
It's in the chat box.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Of which document? You're needing a hard copy
of the monitoring form that talks about what you're looking for in a call. And then you had mentioned a packet or a book that we would be, I guess we would be getting, but I wanted to know how that was going to happen.
Correct. Thank you. You will get that in April when you meet one-on-one with your supervisor, and you'll go over that full detail.
Thank you.
It's quite a book. Actually, Nadine is going to present at the AIRS conference based on what we put together. So.
Awesome. I do have a question about what we were talking about with the script. I had a question about the data questions that we're asking and how they vary from each portal that we go into. And I'm just wondering, like, how do we explain the ones, like, about prescription medication? Like, how do we explain that one? And do we need to ask that unless they are calling specifically for something that, like if they're calling for help with prescriptions or if they don't have insurance? Or is that the only time we need to ask?
No, you need to ask this question as well as the veterans question. You need to ask all of these questions whenever you have a cooperative caller.
Right, okay.
And you would lose points, not very many, 5 I think, for not doing that, maybe 10. But it's a great question about how you introduce this prescription medication, because sometimes it can come right out of the blue, and that's kind of not fair to your caller. what you want to do is let them know, because we have a health specialist, because we have a specialized program for healthcare here, we're asking all of our callers if they need help with the cost of prescription medications. That's kind of how I would put it, because that's the reason why it's there. It's there to inform folks that we have that kind of a program.
Right, and I don't know if this is a question for you or not, and I don't know if anyone else was wondering this, but whenever that happens and it's time for me to transfer, that call, I work in the evenings, by the way, they're not open, their hours of operation are not, you know, at that time, and that goes for all the other skills like you know, the fatherhood initiative or anything like that. So I'm wondering, am I doing that appropriately? Is there a voicemail at the end of that? What's going on with that?
Okay, let me make sure I'm understanding your question. So after hours, if you need to transfer somebody to one of the Tier 2 programs, once they get in there, they are told that, yeah, this is, you know, please leave your name and number so that a veteran specialist or a healthcare specialist or a fatherhood specialist can get back to you during their business hours.
Okay, great. I didn't know if that was like, okay, thank you.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, you want to maybe prepare your caller for that. And it does seem like we're double doing, but what we're really trying to do is ensure that that caller gets a call back and that their particular specialized issue gets dealt with in more of an advocacy way than we as INR specialists would be able to do for them. You know, truth of the matter is we're all looking at the same data. We can all give these folks the same. What our Tier 2 specialists have the ability to do is they've specialized in that area, they have some personal contacts, and they know a little bit more than what is in refer. And they can also advocate, and often, you know, probably 90% of the calls that they address, they end up advocating and continuing to follow up. So, good question for a better understanding of those Tier 2s.
Thank you.
We're starting to run close on time. You will receive these all when you meet with your supervisor. And eventually, right now, you're going to hover over something that looks remotely the same, but has been enhanced, we might say. This is the exam booklet that I am going to email to each of one of you within the next 5-10 minutes, and it will take you through the process of creating a shortcut. You know, you can go in and put it on your desktop. You're going to simply go to this URL and log in using your United Way email address and the word welcome for your password the first time. And then it's going to ask you to change your password to something that is easy for you to remember. And then when you get in there, you're going to see your call results. And please don't be alarmed. This is an example of something that almost never happens. Right now, we're averaging somewhere in and around 79–80% in terms of our QA. And I expect as we begin the regular coaching, that is going to improve, as well as I think you're going to start liking your jobs a little bit better. I hope you like them already, but I think whenever we receive more and more and more training and get better and better at what we do, we like it more. So you're going to be able to weave your way through this booklet. It's really easy, and eventually get to one of your scored calls that you will be able to play, listen to, and then see how it was scored. You can see in this example the used correct grammar, pronunciation, enunciation, short, simple sentences, received a no. So in that call, you should be able to identify for yourself the reason why that happened. If it didn't, if you can't, then shoot a quick email to the 211QA@unitedwaycleveland.org email address so that we can work with you and get on the same page. We might have made a mistake, or it might be something that you don't even realize that you're doing. Okay, and then anybody that plays things over the internet recognizes these kinds of things and can use them pretty easily. Should be able to print out, if you've got a printer, your call results also.
I have a quick question. If you were to get on a call and monitor it and it was a problem gambling like helpline or like an after hours APS call, are those monitored the same way or are those not monitored?
So everything is monitored the same way. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you would still get the same score even though like the problem gambling is a different setup and the questions are different and things like that?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
mm-hmm.
Okay. Just making sure. Thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk these days about decision trees within the INR world. And to me, those data page questions for the gambling almost resemble decision trees. You know what I mean?
Right.
How long have you been gambling? How has it affected your life? Those are really specific to gambling, but in general, those are the kind of questions we should really be asking on almost every single call that we take.
Right, okay.
Once you establish rapport and trust with your caller, they're willing to open up about those kinds of things. And we can often take them deeper into better, more long-term referrals that are, more long-term results for them.
Perfect, thank you.
So I had a, sorry to interrupt. I had a question about the script. How can I print that out if I don't, I want to print it from the library. I don't have a printer here. But I've been trying to figure out how I can do it. I don't think I have an email attachment of it anywhere.
It is, I could probably email it out to everybody if you would like me to.
Yeah, I'd love that.
That's easy to do. It's quick and easy to find in Refer, but I know I'm a paper person. So yeah, I'll go ahead and email the script. It's a two-pager. The first page is the script, and the second page are just some helpful little hints.
Could you also send that someone info line hours or somebody do that? Because when I'm in a actual summit call or another, portal and I need it, I can't pull it up in every portal.
Okay, I'm following you. You're looking for this one.
Mm-hmm. And when you're in certain portals, it's not there. So, and it's important sometimes that I have it, and so I have to escape a call to go into another one that actually has the schedule.
Okay, I guess I'm a little confused. If it's somebody from Lorraine or Summit, why would you not be in the Lorraine or the Summit?
Because they may come through as a Portage County call, or it just depends. And sometimes it did come in as a Lorraine call, and they want tax information, and I need to know why. I mean, what hours they're going to be there to do taxes appointments, because we can't schedule their tax appointment. So say I take a Lorraine call, and they're asking to schedule a tax appointment, and I can't schedule their tax appointments. They need to call back during info line hours. They don't have they don't have that tip sheet in there in Summit or Lorraine.
Only in the Cleveland, like the Cuyahoga.
Yeah.
Contact marker.
Yeah, Erin, can you weigh in on this at all? I know from my understanding, you should escape that call and open up a new call. Not for the taxes not for the taxes, but you know, when it's after hours and we're taking Lorraine or Summit calls, we should be in Lorraine or Summit's database in order to do that, because we don't have their data in our Cuyahogas.
Right, but that's not the issue. The issue is if I'm having a caller from Lorraine or Summit and they're calling to schedule tax appointments and I can't do that during those hours, I need to tell them the times that they can call back so they can schedule during those hours that they are there to schedule.
Okay, I will.
I can't see that in their database.
I see what you're saying. Can you just maybe jot it down on a Post-it note?
No, I mean, I can find these. They're saved somewhere, I'm sure. So I'll just attach them when I send out the exam book. I'll just go ahead and attach the script as well as the
thank you, I appreciate that.
info line little graphy thing. I know that's just very helpful to see, especially since it's not consistent. You know, so it's kind of a wonky schedule that they have us on covering for them after hours. So. Okay. Any other questions, concerns before we?
Can I ask a question, please? And this really doesn't have anything to do with this training, but it is something that I always run across, that I'm always unsure of how to respond. When I do get a Summit call or Lorraine call during the day when we're not supposed to get them, well, how do I tell I struggle with how do I tell the caller that I can't help them because they're supposed to be sent.
How would you do that if you got somebody that called from Columbus?
Well, I would just say that they reached the wrong 211 and that I'd be willing to look, and that's just okay. So, all right, because, you know, they'll say, well, I called the same number early, you know, earlier or later on, and they helped me, and I'm like, okay, well, so I don't know how far into detail I need to get with a client to explain.
I would tell them we cover for after hours. We cover after hours for them. The kind of information you need, you're going to need to call them, you know, when their staff in Akron is answering the phone. Okay. And do you have that 10-digit number? Because most of the time what's happening is they're from out of, they don't even have an Akron phone. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And they'll come in on Cuyahoga because we're the default for the entire state. You know, when somebody like from Colorado is visiting here, you know, and they dial 211, they're going to get, even though they might be in Cincinnati, they're going to get us.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Sure.
I have, excuse me, sorry. I have another question. Since you're going to send out the PDF with the exam information, I know that you said that we're going to get those documents in April when we meet with our supervisor, but can we have those, like, that went through all of the metrics and all of the suggestions as well, so that way we have them so we can start reviewing them now? And if we have any questions when we do meet with our supervisor, we'll be better prepared for that and can start this now.
That wasn't part of the plan, but I will look into that. And if I can, I will. I know that when you meet with your supervisor to go over that book, it's going to be a step-by-step, and there's examples on yes, when you got a yes, you did this. When you got a no, you did that. It's really an extensive booklet.
Right.
What I showed you is just what needs to be changed in the hover. And I don't see any problem with sending it out to you. But it wasn't part of the original plan of this training, so let me...
right. It just, that has a lot of information that, you know, I don't think that we've seen, you know, laid out quite like that before, and that would certainly be helpful.
Document yet. Yeah, no one has seen that document yet. So let me just double check.
Okay.
And, but for sure I'll send out the other, you know, the exam booklet, the summit hours, as well as the script and tip sheet.
And I just had one more question too, sorry. Earlier you were mentioning, you know, when we were recording our calls and refer, like that we're doing it correctly, and you mentioned tax calls and saying that they were calling to cancel a call. I don't think that I was ever told how to do that correctly. I just kind of, you know, use what I've done in the past in Toledo. So I'm not sure how you guys do that. So I was just wondering, like, is there going to be, like, more specific training on something like that, or?
Well,
and for calls with no data, or, you know what I mean? Like, I came up with what I thought was that, and I asked Aaron, does it seem right?
Yeah, in your match list, it says that, you know, for cancellations, address checks, you know, something where you're not actually scheduling them for and referring them for another tax appointment, that you're going to do a save reason.
Okay.
So that is opening this, going to save reason, and picking the tax thing here.
But isn't this tax thing is new, right?
This is a new process for us this year, yes. Yeah, we were saving them as referrals in previous years, which is really incorrect data.
Okay, I was doing explanation of agency or site, but I didn't see this tax appointment reason before.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you.
Understandable. Sure, you're welcome. Okay. All right, everybody. We're over by 10 minutes, but I thank you very much for your time and your attention. I hope this was helpful. I'll get those documents out to you right away. And please let me know anytime. Either call me, I'm at 216-436-2001, or send me an email, which I will get anytime. Okay?
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.